Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice for Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a deck that did extremely well at the Nashville Regional Championships, and by Nashville I mean Knoxville. You see, John Mostowoy, went and got 11th place out of almost 800 people with Lucario and Melmetal. Not a deck that we're expecting to be pretty good. I mean, if you mention Lucario and Melmetal to your average Pokemon player, the response you will get back is, it's weak to fire. How can you possibly play it with Reshiram and Charizard running around? And Mewtwo and Mewdex playing Welder and Reshiram and Charizard? The book on Lucario and Melmetal is that it's not supposed to be good. It just went and won a giant tournament over in Japan, and a lot of the responses I got were, how did it win in a big metal meta? Oh, it must just be Japan doing Japan stuff. Well, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, it's gone and got 11th place in a tournament of 800 people over here in our format. So maybe it is worth taking it just a little bit more seriously at this stage. Okay then, so we should probably start off having a look at Lucario and Melmetal. So Lucario and Melmetal is a Tag Team GX, and incidentally it is 2/3 of the entire Pokemon line of this deck. 260 HP is slightly lower than your average Tag Team GX. But we've got here 2 Colorless Energy, 50 damage, search your deck for a Metal Energy, and attach it to this Pokemon. Then shuffle your deck. The main attack here, 2 Metal, 2 Colorless, 150. But then we've got the GX attack. 1 Colorless Energy. For the rest of the game, your Metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. If this Pokemon has at least 1 extra energy attached to it, discard all energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Now, if you're against a deck that really is trying to get a whole bunch of energy on, then this is quite fun. But a lot of the time, you just use your GX attack here to make sure that you take a bit less damage throughout the game. Although it is nice and fun if your opponent uses a Welder and gets an energy turn 1, such that they've got free energy on their active Pokemon, it's quite fun to use a GX attack to reduce damage done to you and undo all 3 of their energy attachments. It's really fun. And largely here, what you do is you pile energy on here, you use a GX attack early to reduce damage done to you, and then you just sit there hitting 150 a turn, 2-hit KOing everything. Sounds like fun. Now, there's only 1 other Pokemon in the deck, well there's 2, but they're both the same. It is the Hooper that came around in Unbroken Bonds. And this is the one that for a single Colorless Energy does 10 damage base, plus 20 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon that has an ability. Now, it's a really, really good tech against that annoying Giratina that's running around everywhere, but it's also just a really nice non-GX attacker. Single energy, decent damage, only against some decks. Against decks that don't use abilities, and they're going to be using Green's Exploration to really take advantage of that. So if they're playing no abilities, they really are playing no abilities. So it's not good against everything, but you'll be alright. Incidentally, one of the biggest Green's Exploration decks at the moment is Gardevoir and Sylveon, which is one of the best decks in the format, and you will destroy Gardevoir and Sylveon. Weakness and all that. Okay, so speaking of weakness, how do we actually get around this? Well, before we answer that question, we should talk about the energy line. There's a bunch of Metal Energy, which you're probably expecting, and then there's a bunch of Fire Energy. And the simple thing here is we're using Welder. This deck is not fast enough without double Colorless Energy, but honestly, in any deck where you don't need a specific energy type, Fire is the new double Colorless Energy. Welder is the new double Colorless Energy, because you get to attach 2 energy in one go. Nice. And that's how we get the little bit of extra speed. That's how we get the turn 1 attack with Lucario and Melmetal, whether it is the main attack Steel Fist, or whether it's your GX attack Full Metal Wall. That's how you get it done. Now, in terms of the weakness, it's all in the trainer line here. That's what we're focusing on. And the main thing we've got here is Metal Frying Pan. Metal Frying Pan is a lovely tool that you attach to one of your Pokemon, as long as it's a metal Pokemon. You then take 30 less damage from attacks, and you do not have a weakness. It's brilliant. Not being hit for weakness, taking 30 less from attacks, and bearing in mind you're already taking 30 less from attacks because of the GX attack, so now you've got no weakness and you're taking 60 less from attacks. And let's remember at this stage that Field Blower was rotated. So getting rid of tools at the moment is near impossible. We're just not playing many things. Yes, I know everybody could play Faber to put them in the Lost Zone, but I show you a bunch of deck lists on this channel, both Japanese and, well, American/European, and people aren't playing Faber. Faber is off the radar. So there's no point going, well, what if people, who cares? People don't play Faber, so the whole what if people play Faber question is an irrelevant question. And that's what really makes Lucario and Melmetal viable. If we had decent tool removal, Lucario and Melmetal, you could argue, would be terrible. But this is all irrelevant, because we don't have decent tool removal, so nobody cares, and that is how we get around things like Reshiram and Charizard. Now, bearing in mind, Reshiram and Charizard hit for 230. Well, if you use your GX attack and whack a Metal Frying Pan on, they hit for 170. That's not even close. To put it in context, if you can heal 50 damage so that you're then down to 120, then your opponent with Reshiram and Charizard cannot even get a 2-hit KO. Well, if your opponent cannot get a 2-hit KO, you ain't going to be scared of them. And even if you take their GX attack, yeah, that will unfortunately KO you. You see, the GX attack does 300, and it should be reduced down to 240 because of your GX attack because of Metal Frying Pan. But it reads, if this Pokemon has at least 3 extra fire energy attached to it, this attack does 100 more damage and isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. But remember, you've got a GX attack that can get rid of all their energy, so you can really slow them down getting there. And even then, alright, they get a KO, but how do they get the next KO? Also, against Ability Zard, whether using lots of Dedenne, lots of Ninetales, etc., you're going to be able to do a decent amount of damage using Hooper. Now, I've said we need healing, and we do need some healing, and what we have here is Mixed Herbs. Mixed Herbs is one of these item cards where you can play 2 at once. And if you play 1, you remove a special condition, nobody cares. But if you play 2, you heal 90 and remove all special conditions. Along with Metal Frying Pan and your GX attack, that means an awful lot of tag team GXs won't be able to 2-hit KO. That's kind of hilarious. They're doing 60 less per turn, you're healing 90. Yeah, that's going to be pretty good. Now, I mentioned Green's Exploration earlier as a good supporter if you're not using abilities, and this deck doesn't use abilities, so it does play Green's Exploration. Search for any 2 trainer cards, that's pretty good. We've already mentioned Welder, and the other big supporter we see here is actually Coach Trainer. Lets you just straight draw 4 cards if you've got a tag team Pokemon as your active, which you will the vast majority of the time. We then do see a single copy of Lusamine, which is nice for recovering your supporters. Also stadiums. We see 4 Pokegear 3.0 to try and make sure that you've always got the right supporter. That's pretty important. And we see 4 Custom Catcher because it's gusting, it's the best we've got. And both Custom Catcher and Mixed Herbs force you to play 2 at the same time to really get the benefit of them. But remember that Green's Exploration is going to make that fairly painless. We've also got 4 copies of Great Potion because as good as Mixed Herbs is, we still need as much healing as we can get. So Great Potion comes in here, heals 50 from your active Pokemon GX, and between that, Mixed Herbs, Metal Frying Pan, you and your GX attack, of course, you are exceedingly difficult to take down. Cherish Ball is very nice just for searching out your tag team GXs. And of course, we've got Energy Spinner here, which is nice for trying to make sure you've got the fire energy ready to attach with Welder. Though we do also see a copy of Fiery Flint, which is very, very good at searching out that fire energy. We see a couple copies of Reset Stamp, partly because every deck plays it, but we also see a couple copies here, because the thing to remember is that you're often going to have to give up one tag team because your opponent just has that one big attack. But then you can have a tag team which is near impossible to KO, especially if you can get them to KO a couple of Hooper, get them down to 1 or 2 prizes remaining, and then Reset Stamp them. It's kind of fun. We then see one copy of Switch to get out the active, and our stadium cards, we do see one Mount Coronet to recover our metal energy if we need it, but largely we're playing Power Plant here. We're not using abilities. We're using Green's Exploration because we don't need abilities, so it makes sense that we'd also then whack in a Power Plant here so that our opponent also does not get the benefit of using any abilities. And there we go, a deck that's not supposed to be good. A card that's supposed to not be good enough. You know what? I'm kind of loving it. You've got the tools. Really, the biggest thing that's helped out Lucario and Melmetal is the fact that we no longer have Field Blower. That's pretty awesome. But I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you think this is relevant? Do you think this deck can keep doing well? Do you think it might just have been one good person having a good day? Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. But be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves. Till next time, would you? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.